Well, I'm really excited for today's conversation. It's another tri-generational conversation for you, the emerging leader, because we have three generations represented here. I'm Jon Goehring, we have Dr. Rehnuma Karim, and Coach Jim Johnson, and we love to bring on guests who help you, the young and emerging leaders, in different areas of your leadership journey when you're just starting out, or if you've been doing it for years, it's never too late to continue your learning journey when it comes to leadership. So let's dive right in today, Coach. You have brought along yet another great guest. So let's introduce Gary and get our conversation going.
Yeah, it's our first guest from Dubai. So, Gary, we're excited to have you. I got a chance to have a Zoom call before we did this interview. And so I'm just going to share a little bio. He's got a lot of great things, but he says, I'm Irish and I'm a twin. He spent the last 15 years working in tech sales across three continents, Sydney, London, Galway, and now he lives in Dubai. Along the way, he's grown up professionally, but also personally. He's deeply passionate about personal development, public speaking, meditation, football, and fitness. And I think the football is actually in our country would be called soccer. So I just want to clarify it for our audience here. Uh, and this is going to, I'm going to definitely ask about this because I have heard of this gentleman. Something slightly out of the ordinary. He once climbed a mountain in Poland in sub-zero temperatures wearing only shorts. That was with Wim Hof, which I'm very familiar with Wim's work in 2020. His personal growth journey has led him to write a book, and it's called Built by Lessons. Turn your challenges into your triumphs. It's a reflection of the ups and downs, the mentors and moments of clarity and hard-earned insights that have helped shape who he is. He wrote it for anyone who feels stuck, uncertain, or just ready to grow. It's a book I wish I had in my 20s. He currently now is proudly worked at Cisco since 2014. He also does some personal and business coaching. And without any further ado, Gary, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I love the diversity of the group as well. So I'm excited to chat to you all.
Great.
Yeah, actually, well, we brand ourselves as tri-generational, and I hate to say this, Gary, but I am the old one of the three. So, I got to ask you right away because I've heard Wim a few times on various podcast interviews, and I've studied a little bit of his work. I'm not don't know a lot about it, but you got to tell us a story about that journey on the mountain in shorts and what you learned from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So his name is Wim Hof. So if you haven't heard of him, Google him. So long story short, he basically was setting sort of world records for the longest duration in an essentially like in ice. And he climbed Everest in shorts, and he was sort of healing his immune system. So how I found him was quite interesting. So I actually came back and landed into London on a plane from Vegas, and my back seemed to have a serious issue. So turns out I had a slip disc, and then I went to a couple of physios, and no one was really finding the root cause. And then there was one physio who was very much focused on like breathing, and he was saying that I was very tensed up all the time. So he then asked me like, had I heard of Wim Hof? And I said, vaguely, I've read about him. And he said he changed my whole practice. So that got the light bulb sort of moment going off in my head. And basically, I then Googled a seminar with him. He was in London where I was living at the time. I went to this seminar, and it said basically bring yoga shorts or yoga mat and shorts, and that's all you need. And I was very intrigued by that. So he taught us how to breathe, which was sort of healing your immune system. And then when you learned how to breathe, he brought us into the ice water for 2 minutes, and it was the coldest thing I've ever been in. But he got us to sort of bring our breath back, and then you didn't even realize you were in the ice bath. You were nowhere, and it was really, really nice. Then I went to Poland after doing another sort of retreat in Ireland, and that was amazing. We learned more breathing techniques, went into the ice cold water for like 10 minutes in Poland, which was phenomenal, met amazing people. And at the end, we climbed the mountain with him in nothing but shorts and a backpack. And that was pretty surreal because it was like a silent retreat almost in terms of a walk up the mountain. And there was at one stage at the top of the mountain, someone had to move their car, another, say, Polish couple, because there's like restaurants at the top of the mountain. all
Oh,
of our group had to stop. And then we suddenly realized, oh my God, it's absolutely freezing. But we were just so focused on the mission and our breath that we didn't realize. And it's even brought like profound things into sort of how I work and how I deal with pressure as well. So that's just a highlight
cool.
reel
I
of what
know I
happened.
got to delve into one thing because I've started to study and I do some various breathing techniques. So certainly we can't go through all that, but and I know my co-hosts have a lot of questions for you as well. But I do got to delve in this. Can you share just maybe, because we want to help young and emerging leaders, and usually when you get into leadership, you have a lot of stress on you, and it's something that I think is getting bigger, but it's something still not taught that much as far as using proper breathing. So can you give us one that maybe you learned that you could help a young leader that's really stressed with?
Yeah, 100%. And like, by the way, there's loads of different methods. This is called the Wim Hof method, but there's box breathing, all those different things. But in the morning, I get up and I'll do, it's basically like sort of 30 breaths in and out, and you're sort of breathing
Mm,
from your belly. So when you're breathing in, your belly's gone up, and you breathe out, your belly's gone down. And the focus is more you inhale, but then the exhale is a lot more sort of a lot more focus on the exhale. So you're almost like breathing out the pressure. And then at the end of the 30 breaths, you hold it, and you hold for as long as you can, and then you release. And you do 3 rounds of this. And I sometimes see like, lights, colors, and I just feel like a lot of gratitude from it. Now, transparently, some people, they might release sort of, it could, whatever's inside you, it sort of releases it, so to speak. And I do think there's definitely, I guess, in sport, for an example, before Ronaldo will take a free kick, you see the breathing, the breath out. And I think even in a work situation, I'll give you a very quick example. Someone spilled coffee, or it could have been me, we still don't know, over my laptop at an event. And someone said to me, like, how are you not freaking out right now? And I genuinely think it was because of the breathing and because I have sort of surrendered into the process. And
mm,
yeah, I found that it was really helpful to me, and I'm sure it'll be helpful to younger people because I wish I was in that
mm.
mindset when I was younger.
Hey, I just got
Yeah.
to clarify. I'm sorry, Ruma. Just is when you say exhale, are you exhaling from your mouth or from your nose?
Very good point, Jess. So I will
Mm,
typically breathe in from my nose and then exhale with the mouth. Yeah. But I
okay.
think either is fine. Like Wim Hof said, either way is fine. But typically you'll breathe out with the mouth because you'll get the most sort of oxygen out, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we need this breathing practice nowadays more than ever because so many stress factors just sitting in our computer table, or so many other things that are challenging us all the time. We have so many tension points in our shoulder, back, all the time. So I think this breathing technique really helps because I've been practicing that a little bit, and it really lets my all the stress points a little bit loosen up. So thank you so much for sharing that. We needed that. One, just piggybacking on your experience with climbing the mountain. I could feel like when I started trekking through the Colorado mountain, when the breathing got heavier because I did not carry any oxygen mask or anything like that. But going to that top, there are so many challenges that you have to, internal challenges that you can experience. Oh, should I be going? Should I feel like cold or this or that? So, what are like some of the challenges, or what are some of the life lessons do you think climbing can give us? And it could be some of the leadership metaphors, like from climbing the hill, because we often use these metaphors like it's like climbing the hill. You know the destination is there, but you like to give up before going to the top. What keeps you going? So lessons that you have learned from climbing that you can also translate into your leadership skills.
Yeah, really, really good question. So I think a lot of it is mindset, in all honesty. And
Mm.
just to give you a bit of context, like we were there for 5 days, and before we climbed the mountain, we had begun into like ice cold water, and like you didn't really believe you were going to go into that and survive it. And whenever we went into that ice cold water, you're basically, it's like a metaphor for stress. Like it's
Mm,
you're going into a stressful situation and everything is coming up, but you have to just completely focus on your breath so that you're sort of getting rid of everything else. And then eventually you realize like, okay, everything is good, you know, I'm grateful, all of that different stuff. And Wim Hof said to us, like maybe the day before the mountain, he said, "You guys have already climbed the mountain. Like you've already done it. Like tomorrow is
mm,
just the actual reality of doing it." So, as corny and all as that sounds, like it is, it's all a mental game. It's in your head. And like for me, when I was climbing that mountain, I was totally focused on gratitude, and I was looking around at my colleagues who I became really good friends with, and if there was a little moment of struggle, just like when we're in the water, you'd look at someone and you'd know like they got your back.
Mm.
So
right.
for me, that was probably the key.
Mm.
So the trust, a trust from your companions, trusting the environment, that is important. And you are talking about adaptability also, like
So,
sudden change and adaptation. So you have to be resilient. So all these elements. So it is so fascinating that you can touch down so many points of leadership just through this climbing experience.
yeah, surrender, I think, is the key word. And it's like when
Mm,
I'm in Ireland, I love going into the ice cold water that we have in Ireland.
right.
And someone said it to me, like you're basically surrendering. Wim Hof said surrendering, and then another person who coaches me said surrender is really like patience. Like you're just accepting the process. Like there's no good or there's no bad. It just is. And ultimately, if you surrender to it, you're not sort of pushing against something. You're in flow state
Right.
almost.
Mm,
Yeah,
sure.
the cold is a really fascinating topic to me because I know a lot of people are trying to, they're not climbing Everest in shorts, but they're trying to kind of replicate that in their own ways with kind of little home ways of doing that, which might be ice bath or even an ice shower, something like that. Could you talk a little bit about the benefits of that? Because you referenced earlier how it forces you to focus on your breath. Would you recommend, even if somebody doesn't have the opportunity to climb Everest in shorts, what they can do instead to achieve sort of the same results?
Yeah, it's 100%. And just for context, like I climbed, it's a mountain called Mount Snezia, which is sort of between Poland and the Czech Republic. So Wim Hof was the one who climbed Everest. So I definitely,
Sure.
just in case anyone thought I climbed Everest, you never know, I might do it in the future. But for me, when I started off, even going back to the retreat that I did in London, I sort of made a commitment and I gamified the experience through, like, say, a WhatsApp group of my friends. I said, I'm going to do a cold shower every day, and this was like 2018, and I committed to it. And I remember I went to a wedding in Ireland, and then I was waking up that morning catching a flight, and I said, okay, this was actually the first day that I committed to it, so I had to do it. And this was in
Mm,
Ireland, and it may have been like winter, and I had an ice cold shower at the end of my sort of lukewarm shower. Right, you'll just turn the knob for the last maybe 30 seconds or 1 minute, and then just completely focus on your breathing. And I found when I gamified it that that sort of got me into the routine of doing it. And it's a bit like Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog. Like if you're going to do the
mm,
cold shower at the start of the morning, like there's not much that's going to be worse than that, right? And
right.
it actually gives you energy as well. And in Ireland, there's someone who said, like, I don't like the man who went into, say, the water, the cold water, but I love the man who came out. So you're sort of getting rid
Mm,
of all the bad energy, maybe, so to speak, and you're
right.
coming out a different person.
Wow.
Gary, I got a flip because I could talk all day. I'm always intrigued by this, but when doing some research, I saw that you did a global pitch competition, where you pitched an idea to some executives, and that's something as a leader you got to do often, and especially young leaders are tend to be very nervous about doing that. Can you give us some advice? Because I know you had some success in that as far as preparing for a pitch and how to come across so that people buy into your ideas.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of it, like everything, even in the book, it's all holistic. Like all these little things that I've done are stacking on top of each other. So, once again, to give a bit of context, like I'm not a natural public speaker. If someone saw me now, maybe they'll think differently. But I was a person that sweated through a suit in university and had to leave the room It was a joint presentation. Like I couldn't stay in the room because it was soaked. So I was always like very anxious, and this is why I started seeking out things like Wim Hof and different elements in my life. So there was a global pitching competition in work, and I really just focused on being myself, right? You know, because there's no one like me, there's no one like you. And if you're authentic, like authentic speakers, I love, you know, because it's your truth. Like you can't fake the truth, right? Like if you just keep showing up being authentic. So I thought that was sort of a good point to start with. But then there's three simple things, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. So I always
Mm.
liked the rule of three when I'm presenting because it sort of keeps things simple. And of course, if you tell a story, that's another way to sort of do it, you know. And I had more advice then from another mentor who said, like, what are the three things that you really want to convey when you're speaking? And this person was someone I really admired, and he said his was like gratitude, energy, and passion. And I could completely see that when he spoke. And as he said to me, like, my three are going to be completely different to his, but like, have a little think about that. And the obvious one is practice. Like I practiced like so much with this. I practiced in front of my parents, I practiced in front of my wife, my siblings. I hit record as well so that I got used to my voice. And also like you have to seek out help. You know, I was talking about technical details, and you know, I'm not a super technical person. So then I reached out to people who are and asked them, you know, how can we simplify this? So for me, it was like fun. At the end, when I actually pitched to the CEO, it was a flow state. Like I don't even remember it. I was just
Yeah.
completely in flow, and in the process.
Yeah, and that is preparation. If we are prepared and also master the skill, then the fears suddenly start to go down. So that plays a huge role. And you are so right about the mind, manifesting the things in the mind. Often before I go to the pitch, to the fundraisers and stuff like that, I play the whole picture in my head, like I'm entering the office, this is what I'm saying, what is going wrong. I need to hear myself. And that makes things easier when I'm actually in this scenario. So exactly, I hear you. On a different note, as we are all observing, especially in America, we are in a crazy scenario where diversity and all those things are taking a backseat. And we are becoming challenged. We are being challenged to understand each other, people from different races, immigrants, all these elements. And you are now in Dubai, in a totally different country with different cultural values. And we often hear in America, like, fear the Muslims. If the mayor of New York City is Muslim, there will be Sharia law and all those kind of things. So as a leader, we also have to adapt to changes, keep an open mind. So all these elements. So from your experience, you are in Dubai, a Muslim, predominant Muslim country. But what are your take when you embrace this diverse environment and culture? So if anybody is listening from outside Dubai, uh, embracing a new culture, going into a new world, a different shift in the career. What are your takeaways or your advice, or how do you see Dubai when you went there and now?
Yeah. No, a great question. I'm glad that you asked it. So, like, I've been privileged to live in like four different countries. So, I'm born in Ireland, I lived in Australia, lived in the UK, and now I'm living in Dubai. And each country is amazing. Obviously, I love my homeland, I love my people, all that good stuff. But definitely, travel broadens the mind. So, you know, living in all these countries has taught me something different. But 100% moving to Dubai, like it's so multicultural. Like there's every type of culture that you can imagine here. And in all honesty, like there's so many benefits to living in Dubai. But like for me, it really comes down to the people. And you know, I'm working with people from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Sudan, from every country that you can imagine, really. And for me, being sort of raised in Ireland and even living in the other countries, like I can't say that I had someone who is a Lebanese friend or someone who was from Oman or Kuwait or wherever it may be. And what I really like here is like it's completely different when you're living in it, right? And a lot of these people maybe aren't even here by choice, right? Their country might be going through some sort of hardships and tough times, which I haven't experienced in Ireland. Like I said, there's a bit of privilege there, but it's actually very sort of there's a lot of empathy and gratitude that I have for meeting these people because they really do just broaden your horizons. And
Mm.
like one of my neighbors in Ireland used to say, like, people is people. And my dad always says, like, we all laugh the same, we all cry the same. So,
Right.
you sort of just realize that everyone is, I think everyone is good deep down. And like the majority of people that I've met in life are great. And it's no different to being here as well. And like I said, they've taught me a lot of lessons as well along the way.
Did you have to adapt to any of the customs or cultural elements when you are in Dubai, or is it like everywhere else?
I mean, there's obviously little nuances, like maybe you don't shake some people's hands, like you might just, sort of acknowledge them. Sometimes it can be a bit more direct here, like I work in sales. There's a bit more directness compared to maybe, say, Ireland and the UK, where you'll ask about people's weekends in the first couple of minutes of a conversation, whereas here
Mm.
is very direct. So yeah, there's loads of little nuances, but I guess the benefit is of working with people here. Like you ask, you get curious, and you might say something that you're not aware of, and people will just
Mm.
correct you, and they know that it comes from a good place. That you didn't know this. It's, I guess, ignorance in a way, right? How could you know
Right.
it in certain circumstances? So yeah, there's little things, but overall, no, it's very similar, but like I said, there's always nuances here and there.
Mm.
Yeah, great points. And what a powerful way to expand your horizons. It's literally by living in different places, and travel is so fun and enjoyable and also eye-opening. And Gary, it's also interesting when it comes to some cross-cultural differences in areas of leadership. Have you noticed some differences there when it comes to leaders in Ireland and the UK versus leaders down in Dubai? How are there some changes, and how are there still skills that are transferable, but you need to be a bit adaptable to be a leader in either place?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And actually, I really like this region here because what I've seen maybe in the corporate world is like people who've maybe moved from Europe to this region for a couple of years. Then when they go back, maybe they go back to the US or they go back to Europe, like they get even maybe higher positions because they've experienced everything that I've just spoken about. Like they're learning about different cultures. So perhaps then if they go back to the US or they go back to Europe, like there's people from within this region on their teams, and they understand them. They've learned about them. They've sort of opened their mind on that. So I guess it's not the easiest question to answer in a way because there's so many different cultures, and there's benefits, and of course there's pros and cons to every different sort of leadership style. Like I can't say that, hey, what we do in Ireland or the UK is way better than what they do here. You're sort of picking things from loads of different leaders. And in all honesty, I've been blessed with the leaders that I've worked with. Like they understand that you're a human being, that you're not a robot, all that type
Mhm.
of stuff. So I think when it's sort of human centered, human focused, like everything else is just sort of it just is what it is, right? Like there's different styles, but as long as they understand that they're speaking to a human and that you have a life outside of work, then I think for me that's sort of that's what separates the great leaders. And you could find them here, and you could find them in the US or Ireland or anywhere else for that matter.
Yeah, good point.
I often I taught the international tourism class, and there the time management was one of the thing. Like in Brazil, time is seen as a different way. In Arab countries, time is seen as in a different way. So, like in Dubai, Dubai, do you feel that it has modernized that time because there is Bangladeshi time? If you say that it's 7, then we will go there at 9. So something like that. What is the time, like the time issue that you have found, like time management?
Yeah, I guess look, it's a fair point. I mean, definitely, like in Ireland or the UK, if you say a certain time, it's you have to be there at that time. There probably is maybe, like you said, that you might say nine. Hey, it could be 9:30, type thing, and it's like it's just maybe culturally accepted that type of thing.
Right.
But yeah, no, of course, there's little nuances like that. You'll
Mm,
start a little bit later here, like then you'll finish a little bit later.
Mm.
So yeah, no, there's definitely differences like that, 100%. And
Right.
maybe at the start, some people are like, oh, but we do that a different way back home. But then, you have to be like, I'm in a different place now. I'm not, you see the world through your eyes, not other people's eyes. So you have to learn to accept those things and just
Mm.
embrace it, because otherwise you're not going to leave, your house in the morning because there'll be different situations that maybe you don't agree with. So yeah, it's all about
Mm.
embracing the
Yeah,
cultures.
exactly.
good point. So, hey, Gary, I want to augment because I really like your thoughts about getting into public speaking because and in fact that you suffered pretty greatly, which a lot of people do, including I've done a lot of public presentations, and I I wanted to augment that you said you practiced a lot, and that's something people forget. And I'll just say one thing that I add is that because you got to capture people's attention, you should practice your intro even more than you do anything else, and then practice your close because those are tends to be the two things that people remember the most. So I just thought I'd share that, but thank you for that. I got to delve into. Tell us kind of, because obviously we'd like to see people get your book, but tell us about your book. Maybe share one story from that, because it's an intriguing title, Built by Lessons, Turn Your Challenges into Triumphs. So tell us a little bit of what the reader would get from reading your book and maybe share a story from it.
Yeah, so here is said book. So yeah, built
Well
by
prepared,
lessons.
Gary. I like that.
Nice.
You teed me up nicely. I mean, ultimately, what the story is about, so to speak, is like I had a great upbringing in Ireland, like wonderful family, like great siblings, fantastic. I went to university, and then after university, in all honesty, I think I froze because I went backpacking and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think now, having hindsight, I think it's because all of the institutional sort of like say universities, they all put a goal on you. You need to get this grade, and it's all set on you by them. But then when it comes to your own goals, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, in all honesty. So I sort of fell into a sales role in Australia, and unfortunately, the company that I worked for went bankrupt, right? And
Hmm.
like administration liquidation, so it was a really testing time. And I'm this like 24, 23-year old over in Australia. I did have my sibling and my sister were actually over there as well at the same time, which helped. But still, you're just lost, and you're looking for ways to make your way in the world and understand. So I went through a lot of anxiety back then. But then there was one moment, and it's sort of the key moment of the book, where my twin brother actually handed me a ticket to a business and life seminar, and Tony Robbins was one of the flagship speakers. And I was lying down on the futon, sort of feeling sorry for myself. And I could easily have said, no way, I'm not going to go. But it was a little bit like there was a magic with this ticket, like with the way he even showed it to me. And I said, you know what? I'll go. And I go into this business seminar. And I mean, if you see Tony Robbins live for the first time and you've not heard of him, like this was like seeing the Matrix, it just completely opened up my eyes to everything. Now, I was in the wrong vehicle with the business I was in because it was going bankrupt. And no matter how good I got at public speaking or sales, I was never going to make it there. So I did stay in the company for a little bit longer, but that was just because I was in the business seminar mode and I was practicing things and speaking to different people, going to seminars at the weekend, spending like $24 on could be like a cold calling program, learning how to do sales. And then I realized, okay, I have all the theory completely down. So now why don't I go back to Europe and get in the right vehicle? And ultimately I found that with the company that I work for today, and I've done like international moves. I've won global pitching competitions. So the whole book was basically how can I reverse engineer what I've done back to when before I got that ticket to the seminar, and then teach people sort of who are going through something similar, um, to find their path earlier and accelerate their success as well. And there's loads of different stories about the mentors that I've had, obviously traveling with Wim Hof in Poland, understanding how to set goals, how to set a vision, and also understanding that, yeah, there's destiny helpers out there because ultimately we're antennas and we're always sort of receiving messages, and you have to be open to the messages.
Mm.
Yeah, and to
So,
receive the messages, you have to have the knowledge, not only information, but knowledge. And that is when your reticular activating system just go up. And Tony, I think Tony Robbins talked about this reticular activating system. When you know that this knowledge is there, when you have the awareness, then you start to pick on all the information that is coming through you. And I always believe that life is not about only success stories. We have to experience challenges and failures in order to grow. So you grew from that experience, and probably you won't be here in Dubai if everything went nice in Australia. You won't be here in Dubai. You might be stuck into that
100%.
environment.
A
So,
100%.
yes, so universe has planned for us, and we just walk through with an open radar. My last question to you: you are in the field of IT, technology, and all these elements, and we are hearing so many stories and fear stories about AI and this. We human will be no more needed. What is your overall take? Like, where is leadership or human skill going with AI becoming more humanistic with the era? Like within 10 years, the AI will be doing all our thinking. Like I don't need to think about. And when I'm using Chat GPT, it is scary to see like, oh, like it is surpassing me. So, what are your thoughts on merging this AI and human skill together? Do we need us in the future at all?
Yes, 100% we do. And I think everything is disguised as maybe like it could be, you could see it as a problem, but then there's massive opportunities sort of from this. And I'll give you two examples. I was watching this movie with my wife. It was about, there was basically these ladies who were the mathematicians behind, in NASA around the sort
Oh
of
yeah.
the
Hmm.
flying to the moon. And basically in that movie, and I forget who was in it now, so apologies, but I'll try and dig it out later. But they were given this sort of a machine, and they were like, "Oh, we don't really need those ladies that were doing the maths anymore." And ultimately, then it was like, "How do we actually work the machine?" And then they're like, "Actually, we know how." So then they were the ones in charge of the machine.
Yeah.
And I and my company asked someone, I need to learn a little bit more about AI. So they recommended a book to me. And long story short, at the end of the book, there was this nursing home and it was completely automated, AI everywhere. So everyone was like, job done, amazing. We don't need any sort of one to help us. But what they found was that the help desk was like inundated with calls. Like they were getting calls upon calls upon calls. And they're like, I thought we had everything sort of automated. And it turns out that the patients just wanted to speak to a human at the end of the phone. So
mhm.
the
Mm-hmm.
moral of the story really is like that human connection, I don't think is ever going to go away. Um, and I think if you're not reinventing yourself constantly, then of course, there may be challenges to your career. But I think if you're curious and you're constantly reinventing yourself, like public speaking, like we just mentioned, like that's something that's gone
Right.
back to the caveman times, so if you learn skills like that, I think you'll be fine. But also embrace some of these like ChatGPT, because ultimately we will need to use that, because there's some mundane tasks that you don't want to have to do. If we
Mm,
can get that automated, then we can focus on being more creative sort of in our life,
true,
I think.
true.
Great
That's
point.
Yeah.
great. That's a
So,
great point. And this is one of my big takeaways here is the power of public speaking. So kind of tying that into AI and some of these emerging technologies as a public speaker, you talk about your experience with Tony Robbins, and that's kind of proof in and of itself, right? But how can someone leverage these AI tools but also be that genuine, authentic public speaker as a leader that can get their team or their audience to really buy into their message?
So would the question sort of be around like how can people learn public speaking, or
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And if applicable, are there ways to use emerging technology not as a replacement of our speaking, because we know how important that human connection is, but also, but are there ways to also use that?
Yeah, and once again, it's a great question. So for me, how I learned public speaking was I started going to Toastmasters, which is like an international organization. Like there's one in Galway in Ireland where I'm from. There's one in Dubai. There's definitely ones in the US. And there's a story in the book about this as well. And it's, you basically go in there. It's a room full of strangers. Like it's very structured. It's maybe twice a month. Like the fee for the year is not crazy at all. What you learn is amazing, right? And I signed myself up for something called a table topic, and you're basically signing your life away. It's like maybe there's five, six people, and they give you a random topic. And I remember I was the first one that was picked, and they asked me, "So Gary, why should Ant-Man win an Oscar? Go." And that was the longest 2 minutes of my life. Like I think I froze. I didn't know what to say. And then I sat down and they gave me like constructive criticism, should we say, like what you did well, what you could improve on. And then I saw the next speaker and they were asked a similar like crazy question, but they had a structure. Like they asked the audience a question. They sort of paused. I could clearly see that they had learned the structure of this. So after attending more and more of these, then I realized, okay, there is a structure. Like I could pause, I could ask the audience a question. I could have done anything except for what I did. And, I didn't see Ant-Man at the time, but I knew that, say, Phoebe's boyfriend in Friends was in there. So I could have said, I've not seen that, but I know Phoebe. I could have done anything. Um, and then what I discovered was like, if you then go into, say, an interview, like something like a table topic can help you because you're going to get thrown a random question. So it can help you with a structure and maybe you flip the question back on the interviewer or
Mm.
you take it in loads of different ways, ask them to repeat the question. So for me, everyone should definitely attend that if you're looking sort of to progress your career. And then in terms of AI, like even honestly, the title of this book was helped a little bit by ChatGPT, but I gave ChatGPT the context. I said, this is like what my book is about. And there was almost like a back and forth conversation
Mhm.
between me and ChatGPT.
Mm.
And ultimately, then we came up with sort of built by lessons and the subtitle as well. But I did have to get a human to bold the your. So the bold is on the your because he was like,
Yeah.
it's missing one thing. So, like I said, it's using AI, it's using other human beings. And yeah, that's my answer probably for that one.
Yeah,
Yes,
the emotions, you have
yeah.
to have the emotions connected to it. So, yet the AI has not become centennial to act as use the emotion. And I just wanted to say that it is so true that we need to have that merge that can make us better. And interestingly, there was this podcast host, Nas Daly. So he used in the recent time, he used some AI to have like some actors playing things that he's talking about. And his crowd didn't like it at all. Everybody wanted him in the natural setting. He used to walk around and talk about those things. But then he became bringing in all those AI actors and stuff, which people did not like because it took away the authenticity from the whole thing. So sometime it might work, sometime it can accentuate, and sometime it might not at all work with the AI.
Yeah, good point. So, well, Gary, my last question and wrapping up, I will share. John and I do a weekly call, an accountability call, and your table talk, because I've been to a few Toastmasters and they do a great job. We learned from a communication coach many years ago on our podcast an activity called the random word, which is a little bit shorter. It's basically where you give the other person a word and they have to talk about it for a certain period of time. For John and I, we do it for 45 seconds and you got to say the word 3 times. But the amazing thing is because I do breakout sessions at conferences, and when I first started sharing that, I would let them go and I would not be the example but John and I have done it so often. Now I put myself on the spot and I've become very good at it. So it's a great point, just getting those types of activities in your life, like jumping into that cold water. That part I
Yeah.
haven't done yet, Gary, but maybe someday. So I have started to turn my shower down at the end. But so I have one last question. I know John will wrap it up, but I do want to thank you for your great insights today, and we really appreciate your time and your wisdom. But you've mentioned Wim Hof, Tony Robbins. You mentioned a book that you read. I know personal development was something you said in, that I read in your bio. So if you were to share with a young leader, maybe one book or one person you would recommend, maybe one of each, to follow, to learn from, to be a better leader, who would you recommend?
I think, yeah, books. I mean, this is a very tough question. So
Yeah.
this is why you saved it for last. I think that How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, like, is a really, really good book, and it sort of sets the foundation and sets the basics. And I think in terms of a person to follow, I mentioned Tony Robbins already, so I won't mention him. But I think Jim Rohn is someone who I go back and forth with quite a lot, and he was obviously the mentor for Tony Robbins. So
Right.
I would say Jim Rohn. And I also have to give credit to, there's a guy called Grant Cardone, and
Mhm.
people either love him or hate him. But
Right.
what he did for me in my sales career was amazing. Like, I don't know the guy personally, but just the motivation that I got from reading and listening to his stuff was really, really good. So I have to acknowledge him in that.
Well, I got to make one comment because my wife is kidding me. Jim Rome passed away in 2009, and we actually had his manager, Kyle Wilson, on our podcast. I was a huge Jim Rohn, and my wife has kidded me for years that you could keep his seminars going because I've listened to so much of his programs. I could repeat Jim Rohn. So I appreciate you bringing him up because he's been passed away for a long time, but he certainly was a treasure chest of insight. So John, let's wrap it up with Gary.
Yeah,
So
sounds good, Gary. So obviously we got those great people to look up to, but we also have you too. You do a lot of different things. First of all, your book, how do we get that? Because we know those stories are valuable to those young and emerging leaders. And how do we get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. So the book is called Built by Lessons, and it's on Amazon. So that's the only platform that it's on now. So you can grab it on Amazon. And then I typically hang out on LinkedIn. So at Gary Daly Sales, or if you just search me in LinkedIn, you should find me. And that they're pretty much the two main places that I'll hang out.
Great.
On LinkedIn and that book up on Amazon. Those links down in the show notes too, so you can connect with Gary and learn more about Gary. And if you've learned a lot about Gary, let him know. We would love for you to reach out to Gary and tell him how much you learned here on the Limitless Leadership Lounge. And we'd also appreciate if you shared this episode with somebody, whether it's somebody who's mentioned diving into a cold shower, somebody who's mentioned public speaking, anybody who wants to learn more about these topics, which I think are transferable for all young and emerging leaders. So, Gary, we can't thank you enough for your time today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge. We learned so much from you, man. We look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you so much. And yeah, as I said, I learned a lot from all three of you as well. So really appreciate it.
Thank
thank you,
you.
Gary.
Thank you.